Good morning, Mackenzie.
Good morning, Lamar.
And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We're covering The Truman Show, in case you guys didn't know from the episode title today. We're getting into a new month, which we'll talk about after the opening credits. But this one, as I was watching it, I was really tripped up on how many notes modern day reality television has taken from The Truman Show. Because at this point, say what you want about reality TV back in like the 90s when it first started out. It was never 100% real, I don't think. But these days, it just feels like mostly they're working off a script. They're setting stuff up and then they're just filming reactions, which is kind of what this is. There's one dumbfounded person surrounded by all these plot points that he's being forced to interact with and engage with. So my question to you, before I give the entire plot of the movie away, is...
I was going to say, we should probably not tell everyone what it's all about.
Sorry, guys. I apologize. But... what reality television show, I guess, would you want to be on, or you can interpret it as which one do you think you as a person would be the most fun to watch on? Like, where would you fit in the best?
It's so funny you say this because I don't really watch reality TV. I don't really. I had to Google just now like some reality TV show ideas to get any frame of reference, and I don't know 90% of what these fucking things are. But one, it's so funny. My friend, who I don't know if she's cool with me naming her, so I won't insert redacted friend here. We used to go to the nail salon and like just get our nails to get done together, and we haven't been able to do that in a long time. And we would just like fucking chat it up and snark back and forth, and like we would just make fun of each other and roast each other and just have a great old time. And our nail tech used to tell us like every week, she was like, y'all need a camera following you around. Like the two of you need a camera following you around. Y'all are hilarious. I die. I would watch the whole thing. So I have no idea what reality show I thought
you
were
going Real Housewives, honestly, after
way
you were going with that. Of like, we hang out at the salon because we have money and we can get our nails done and we just gossip.
The Real Housewives is the literal last one I would be on, unless there's one where I can be a dick to all the housewives, like, and not also be just like them, because they're all assholes to each other. But I would just sit there and roast them. I feel like,
but I'm pretty sure that's kind of how it goes. They're just all mean to each other at different times.
Point is, I would absolutely not want to be on the Housewives, but apparently my friend and I roasting each other ad nauseum is quite compelling. Otherwise, I would love for Queer Eye to just make me over. I don't know. Does that count?
That's a good choice. Yeah, I think that counts. I mean, that's real enough.
I don't know the rest of them, but that one feels nice. They can make me over.
Yeah, I'm not a big reality TV person.
What are you
I remember back in the 90s watching Real World and Road Rules. That was about the extent of my reality TV days. And then I did watch some seasons of different game shows like Survivor, which I guess it's a game, but it is reality TV. But yeah, the newer stuff, not so much. I'm not big on like Love Island or Love is Blind or anything else with love in the title. My favorite concept is Too Hot to Handle, which is where they put a bunch of very attractive people together, get them all drunk for 2 months, but they're not allowed to hook up and do anything sexual in any way. And it's just them failing over and over again, and they keep losing money from their prize pool. Just that concept makes me laugh, because I'm like, you literally just have to not be horny for like, but they just intentionally, it's like, we're having another party tonight, free liquor, but don't do anything bad. And
we can't help ourselves. So are you saying you're too hot to handle? You would be on Too Hot to Handle? Y'all, you heard it here first.
I'd be too old to handle. I don't think I can be on Too Hot to Handle anymore. It'd just be, okay, you have to be on this island where you can give you alcohol and you're not allowed to complain about anybody younger than you. You're not allowed to be an old miser. That's too old.
That one I would do. We should do that one. I would do great at that one. I mean, actually, I would fail immediately. Just kidding. All right, well.
The only other one that I will say is Janelle's watching The Traitors now. And that has a lot to do with lying. And it's basically like a werewolf, secret Hitler, pick your bluffing game. But it's that in real life. So that one has a lot to do with just lying to people's faces. And I feel like I'd be pretty good there.
I forget. Are you really good at poker? We haven't played poker, so yes. You've said you are.
We should have a poker night. Yeah.
I know. I am pretty good at poker. I'm ready to see it. I don't like to lie to people, though. So it is kind of a weird anomaly that I'm good at poker. And now I'm like on guard around you. You're like, I would be really good at lying. What else are you lying about?
My name's not even fucking Lamar. We've been doing this for 2 years. I can't believe you believe that. You know. I'm white. Come on, dude.
The more you know. All right,
Yeah.
let's roll. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I am Lamar. That was
He is
that was
Lamar.
just Josh. I'm
He's
Lamar.
trying to decide if he's going to lie or not.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, first of all, to episode 100, which is kind of cool. Like, kind of a
came
big
out
deal.
of nowhere. It snuck up on us.
Yeah. All of a sudden, here we are. I am just happy that it's not Talladega Nights. I was like,
You
what are
said
we
that
doing for
last
episode 100? It can't be Talladega Nights. So we are not. Luckily, it's the beginning of a whole new month, thankfully. And we are doing Satire's September. Welcome.
And that is, it tripped me up. I remember you threw the idea out there of like, why don't we do some satires? And I'm familiar with like the concept both in movies but also in literature, and then I'm familiar with parody as well, and I don't know where those lines cross. So can you explain what is satire?
So glad you asked. I have a prepared explanation of satire for those who will be celebrating with us for the month. I resisted the urge to PowerPoint. You are welcome. However, I found a really good, I'm familiar with satire, but I was like, what is the best definition that I can share? And I found one that I think is very good in terms of art specifically. So I think that's really helpful. So this one will hopefully guide you guys to what we're doing this month, which is: satire is a genre of the visual, literary, and performing arts, usually in the form of fiction and less frequently nonfiction, in which vices, follies, abuses, and shortcomings are held up to ridicule, often with the intent of exposing or shaming the perceived flaws of individuals, corporations, government, or society itself into improvement. So, although satire is usually meant to be humorous, its overall greater purpose is often social construct criticism, using wit to draw attention to both particular and wider issues in society. And it can also make fun of really familiar or common themes in art and film. So that's like a very broad explanation. I have
satire.
Examples.
I mean, there's multiple differences, but satire essentially is when it's taking into account the current society, like the real world, and it is poking fun / putting a spin on what the reality is, but making it kind of humorous and trying to get us to think about why it's wrong.
Can be. It's a criticism. It's a form of criticism. Typically, I think is the big thing to take into account. Of like, it is a criticism of a construct of the thing that it's making fun of, like insert thing here, right?
Whereas a parody is more like, we're just going to take this.
We're just going to emulate this, right? Yes. We're going to make this funny, or we're going to like rewrite this and do it in a different way, or make it on a different topic, or what have you. This is a commentary, not even just a criticism. Typically a criticism, but a commentary on an issue or something bad or perceived as negative in society. So for example, to give context here, so the earliest examples of satire were the Punch and Judy dolls. If you've ever heard of Punch and Judy, like they would be at town squares, usually giving commentary on what the royals were doing that most people in, the layman didn't agree with, right? The new version of that today, the modern version of that would be like... Also, yes, honestly, actually, yes, but also like political cartoonists. SNL is an example in some cases of satire, depending on the skit. Certain literature and plays are certainly satire, like Anna Devere Smith is a satirical playwright. Mark Twain, Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. And then in terms of films, like what obviously we're going to be talking about this month, but not ones that we're doing, are things like Starship Troopers and Idiocracy and Triangle of Sadness and even Fight Club, that are all like some kind of commentary or criticism on the subject at hand or the theme at hand or the overuse or the obsession of that theme, like say Starship Troopers, for example. So that's kind of what we're doing.
That's I like that all-encompassing definition. Do you feel as though there has to be a comedic element to it to define it as satire? Because all but one of the ones you named I would consider comedies, but it doesn't have to be, as long as there's commentary there.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be. Think about, for example, a political cartoon, right? Like there are so many of those that there's no humor in some of the commentary that they're making, right? It is
Hmm.
still a satire or a political commentary. The Onion, for example, in some cases has done that as well, but they're usually trying to be funny. And I think that's just that by virtue of humor is the best way to, like, best vehicle to deliver that commentary in most
Yeah.
cases, right?
Yeah.
You can always get away with, oh, I was just kidding, it's a joke. But also you can say, you're welcome, I told you, and I told you in this like gentle, very consumable way that this is something you should work on or change or what have you. So I just think
That
I
was
think it's an effective vehicle, really.
100%. What was the what's the old political essay from like the 17 or 1800s? The guy that was saying they should eat the poor or eat children. What was that? You know what I'm talking about? Like we learned it in fucking high school history class.
Eat
Some
children
It was
essay.
like, but
Excuse
it
me
was
while
a
I
joke.
Goog.
It was satire because he wasn't actually telling people that's what we should do, but he published it as though it was like the earliest example of the Onion, basically.
The Jonathan Swift one, A Modest
Yes.
Proposal.
Yes,
Yes,
a modest
yes,
proposal. I
yes.
feel like that's a
Hmm.
very early example of satire, but I'm excited to see. I guess once we get into the movie today, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on what exactly this is satirizing. Truman Show.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. And before we do, we're gonna talk about our drink. What is powering us through today?
Well, guys, we decided to try something different this month. We wanted to give a shout out to our non-drinking friends or the people listening to this pod that don't need an alcohol beverage in hand. And we've actually had a couple folks on the pod who don't drink alcohol, so more power to you. And we wanted to finally do a month where we're not downing, 2 cocktails on a Saturday afternoon. So we're gonna do mocktails for the month of September, and this is from
Yeah.
these are still from at Craft World, so crft.wrld on Insta, and no booze. So you guys can make these for your kids if you want to. Just don't give them access to the liquor cabinet afterward. So this is 3 ounces of orange juice, 1 ounce of coconut water, half an ounce of lemon juice, half an ounce of blue curacao syrup, which is not blue curacao liqueur. You can buy non-alcoholic blue curacao. And you'll also need a little bit of soda water. So what you'll do is you'll shake up the OJ, the coconut water, and the lemon, put that into a tall glass, top it off with soda water, and then you'll pour that blue curacao syrup at the top. But we are calling this drink Always On, because that's kind of Truman's situation in this spoiler. So always
Literally.
on.
Literally. Love it. That's pretty tasty. Yeah, so we're gonna even satirize our cocktails this month. You're welcome. All right. Let's get into it. We'll do some basics and then we'll get into the fun stuff. So the Truman Show, 1998. Best time in the world, really. 8.2 out of 10 IMDb, and 94% from critics, 89% from audiences. So pretty high reading, very solidly received, which I think is interesting given this isn't like at the height of reality TV, you know what I mean? Like to your point, a
It's
lot
ahead
of
of its
reality.
time.
Yeah, it's ahead of its time. It's a really unique concept, and challenging for a number of ways. So I think it's fascinating that people were immediately drawn to it and thought it was good. So
super well received, and like you said, 94% from critics. I found it interesting that this got a Best Director nom at the Oscars, but it didn't get a Best Picture nom. And I have a theory for why that is, because honestly, the shots in this are incredible. This looks like what it would look like if you had a fake town and you had to stash cameras everywhere. I wrote down in the first 10 minutes of this, the camera does everything. It just watched the first moment Truman walks out of his house, interacts with the dog, and the first like 5 minutes after that, there are camera angles everywhere. And some of them are hidden inside things, and some of them have the corners cut off, and some of them are up shots and down shots, and you're wondering where the cameras actually come. It is shot very creatively, but I can see why the Academy would opt to give it was the only one that year that got a Best Director nod, but did not get a Best Picture nod. The other 4 films all got both. They replaced this in the Best Picture category with Elizabeth. So I can get why the Academy would be like, Elizabeth's the better film, the better movie. We don't want this like comedy kind of satire thing to be a Best Picture nom, but they at least acknowledged how well this is shot.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Also, I'd be interested to know if they got a Best Cinematography nomination for that reason. But it is a very creatively shot film. And it's funny because not all the angles, we'll get into it, are, particularly flattering. They're just angles, they're just angles to show you what he's doing. And it's kind of wild.
It does feel like you're almost in another universe in this. It's very like
Oh, yeah.
Pleasantville or Stepford Wives. It's this like
Yes.
utopian kind of society.
Well, we'll get into set design and inspiration and all the things. I have lots of thoughts. Okay, so really quick, director who was nominated. I think maybe it's also a credibility thing because this guy has done some shit. So Peter Weir, who did Master and Commander, Dead Poets Society, which is really good, obviously, if you haven't seen it. And then the writer here was Andrew Niccol, who is of Gattaca fame, which we've talked about before here on the pod, and The Host, which is apparently did pretty well, but that's the Twilight lady, who is the origin of that.
I was going to say, not to be confused with The Host, which is I want to say Korean film. Guys, don't hate me if I'm wrong about that, but like it's a Korean horror movie called The Host, and it's like a giant monster thing. He also did The Terminal, which, as we know, is Joe from Prime Cut Pod's least favorite Spielberg movie.
I'm with Joe on this. If y'all didn't hear that episode, I agree with Joe. It's not my favorite. Not at all. Major cast and crew, you mentioned obviously Mr. Jim Carrey, just in his prime, doing his just really incredible performance, because it's so much more nuanced, I think, than other things you see him in up to now. And it's ends up being a bit dramatic, and it's funny, and it's all like, it just shows how well-rounded and capable he is, I think. But anyways, he obviously has been in a bazillion things. Ace Ventura movies, Liar Liar, The Mask. We've talked about a bunch of these before. He's just a gem.
And despite being on In Living Color at the time, I think Ace Ventura was his big breakout. And did you know that he kind of owes that to Rick Moranis?
No.
Rick Moranis basically retired from acting in the 90s. Like, he hasn't, I think he might have been in one film since the 90s. But Rick Moranis peaked and was just like, hey, I've had my fun. I'm done acting. They offered Ace Ventura to Rick Moranis first, and he said no. And then they offered it to like 3 other people, Judd Nelson, David Alan Grier. And eventually, I think the 5th, 6th choice was Jim Carrey, just because one of the people producing saw him on In Living Color. Yeah. And he gets that. And that just like catapults him into this series of like 3 years where he's in a dozen comedy movies and they're all incredible. And then he does this in 98, which is such a turn. And it's still, there's parts in this where he's doing Jim Carrey things. And I feel like those 30 years later are the weakest parts of the movie, but he's really fucking good in this.
He's really good. And I mean, like, can you imagine somebody else doing Ace Ventura at this point? It's like, what if anybody, like, nobody else should have done that? That worked out the way that it should. Obviously.
I want to see Rick Moranis with the big Ace Ventura hair, though. Somebody, AI, make that happen, please.
Oh, I love it. All right. Laura Linney plays Meryl. It's so funny. I had the weird realization today where I was like, she's one of those people who's in everything. And then I went and looked at her IMDb. She actually doesn't have like a crazy number of credits, film credits specifically, not nearly as many as I would expect for how active and how long she's been in the industry. It seems like she's really intentional with her work, but she feels like she's in so many more things, which I just thought was interesting. I don't know why I think that, but anyway, she's in Kinsey. I don't know if you ever saw that. She was really good in that. Breach, which I also really liked. And my personal favorite reference, mostly because I think you're going to love it, The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
I think I saw that when I was like young-ish, like probably a teenager.
It's actually good. I own it.
Okay.
It's one of the ones I like.
Going Mothman Prophecies with Richard.
Oh,
Gere,
that's another one.
Another horror thriller. But I know her from Ozark. She's incredible in Ozark. She's a good like semi-villain, but you're also rooting for her and her family. Yeah.
Maybe that's why she feels pervasive, like as of late, because that's relatively recent. But I was actually looking specifically at film credits of hers, and I was like, I feel like she's in more stuff. So that's probably why. But Exorcism of Emily Rose, she's really, really good at it, and it's one of those horror movies that I actually like. So if I like it, I'll probably like it.
Maybe we'll do it in October this year. We'll see.
There you go. Noah Emmerich, he's another one for me that like feels like he's in a lot of things. He plays Marlon. He was in Super 8, which I never saw. Did you see that?
Super 8 was good. It was basically like I forget what the guy's name is. He was like Lost. He was the main driving force behind Lost.
J.J.
And then
Abrams.
actually, maybe it was an Abrams film. Who's the
I
other?
mean,
Yeah,
it
I
is
think it was an
J.J.
Abrams
Abrams.
film. Yes,
It is,
I
but I
get
didn't
him
know.
mixed up
No.
with the writer on Lost. He ended up doing Cabin in the Woods and a bunch of. So those two kind of ended up making a bunch of really good films. I know you love Cabin in the Woods, but
He's just
J.J.
trying to
Abrams,
trigger
I
me, you
believe,
guys.
did Super 8, and it's basically like he's really ripping off the Goonies, but it's like an aughts version of teenagers or like kids on bikes, but it's like an alien invasion, but it's still kind of cute, but a little scary, but it's basically the Goonies or E.T. Like, yeah.
All right. Wow, that's a lot. That feels like a lot in one show.
It was enjoyable. I saw it once. I was like, yeah, that was cute. Sure.
He also did Miracle, which I figured you would,
Big hockey guy.
hockey
Yes.
related also. So really, this cast is here for you today, Lamar. Is what
I feel like
we've
his
learned.
big weakness is he kind of looks like the guy, the bully that plays Biff in Back to the Future. So
He
I thought he was
does,
in a lot
and
more.
yes,
I was like,
I
oh, he's
don't
not in
think
that.
I don't think that helps him at all. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, he's that guy, but he's not that guy. So
Right.
anyway, we also have Natasha McElhone. I don't really know.
McElhane.
Mac,
But she's like,
McElhone?
I feel like she's UK. Like, I don't think she's American. So maybe it is an interesting.
She almost gives me like a Welsh undercurrent, like a very
like
specific. It's
McElhaney?
interesting.
Like
I
Ralph
don't know.
from
We
Always Sunny in
apologize.
Philadelphia.
Her, that
If
woman.
she's listening right now, she's pissed.
I just apologize for not Googling this first, actually. But she's gorgeous. I'll give her that. And she's good in this. She plays Lauren and Sylvia, I should say. And she's in a couple of things that she's known for are Solaris and Ronin, neither of which I saw. So I couldn't tell you anything about them.
I didn't recognize her from anything.
But those are her best.
Yeah.
She's again one of those that feels like I recognize her, and then I was like, I think I recognize her from this. Like I remember her from this, and that's probably it.
She's got kind of a 90s Emily Blunt thing going on, like different hair, but I feel like maybe she
I can
got,
see that,
phased out by Emily Blunt. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean that could happen. She's great. Emily Blunt's pretty great. I get it. Holland Taylor, who I think is a real gem, plays Truman's mom. She's been a bazillion things, probably most well known for Legally Blonde. And then recently she was in The Morning Show. And she plays like the owner of the network or what have you. So yeah, she's really interesting, and she's so Stepford-y in this one, which I think is new for me, at least with her. Ed Harris, who is, I don't know, a legend perhaps, plays Kristoff, which I love that just his name's Kristoff. Just
It's a character. It feels like it should be a character in Zoolander. Like it feels very Will Ferrell, like Mugatu, like Kristoff.
His whole look, his whole vibe, it's very like the director, the creator. Like it's Anyway, he's a whole thing. But he's done fucking everything. He did Apollo 13, which he was incredible in. He's recently been in Westworld, which I know y'all it devolved, but like he was in it when it was good. And then Pollock, he played Jackson Pollock, obviously. And then one that I wanted to shout out that I really liked that I think is kind of a dark horse and people haven't seen is Kodachrome. And that is relatively recent. It is on, I think, Netflix, and it's got Elizabeth Olsen. Yeah, Elizabeth Olsen. And what is his name? Oh, I can't remember his name. But anyway, it's kind of like a road trip movie, and so it's like kind of really visually interesting. But it's about the last printing of Kodachrome film. And like he's a photographer who needs to like print his last Kodachrome film out at this place is going to stop printing it. And there's one place in the country that does it. So it's just, it's a good little movie. If you haven't seen it.
Yeah. It wasn't even supposed to be Ed Harris in this. I think originally they cast Dennis Hopper and he walked out his first day on set. Probably Jim Carrey's fault would be my guess. That's just a hypothesis. But it was just,
I was going to say, I want more information from that, to be honest. But I also, same thing, I just feel like he's such a great choice. I mean, especially if you insert Dennis Hopper, I'm like, no.
Dennis
it feels
Hopper
like an Ed Harris
doesn't
thing.
And I know that Ed Harris plays this character pretty rough and very like sans emotion at a lot of times. But I think Dennis Hopper, just you look at him and he seems meaner than Ed Harris. Like Ed Harris has a warmth to him when you first
Yeah,
see him, I think.
I think you are not as immediate. I think it's actually better because you're not as immediately like this is the villain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think to your point, Dennis Hopper would give that energy of like, oh, he's the cold, he's the bad guy, he's the
Yeah.
whatever. Versus I think it's actually more interesting that Ed Harris is kind of a question mark. You know, you're like, is this bad? Is this good? What's happening with this person?
I don't think this is like a major spoiler, but it feels very much like a father-son dynamic. Like he seems very proud of Truman, and he treats him like he is his baby essentially until he doesn't, you know.
Yeah, and you see it of go in and out is I think what I would say is
Yeah.
like that's why I think it's more compelling with him of when is he treating him like a commodity versus a a connection, a familial connection. I wanted to call out a couple cameos that I think there are more, but the ones that I caught were Paul Giamatti, of course, who's in the control room. And
Is it a cameo if you're not famous yet?
Yeah,
It's
I
like
guess it's not really a
like...
cameo. This is before they were famous, for sure.
I know. I went back to his IMDb and looked at his previous roles before, and it's basically he's just playing jobs. It's like casino worker, or like in this operations control
literally
room
his title
guy.
is
like,
control room director. Yeah. But
Talk
obviously he went on to do amazing things.
Yeah.
Sideways, The Holdovers, all the things. Angelica Houston does make a cameo, and that one's legitimately a cameo. She was already famous. But we've talked about her via The Witches before. And also Ever After, she plays like a pretty good villain, I think, that I really love. And there's an Ever After reference that's going to come up later too. Interesting. Just thought about that. Okay, really quick plot summary, and then we're gonna roll on. So an insurance salesman begins to suspect that his whole life is actually some sort of reality TV show.
And spoiler, he's kind of right, I think, is what you learn at the end of the movie, right? That's the twist.
That's the twist. That's the real twist. Yeah. Well, the tagline for I don't think we're giving anything away, because the tagline for the movie when it was released was "On the Air, Unaware." That was the tagline. Yeah. So they're really like giving it away out of the gate. And it did really well. It was $60 million budget, and it made $264 million at the box office, which is...
I didn't see this in theaters. Did you?
I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, it did really well. I mean, people flocked basically to see it. All right, kids, turn around. Don't drown. It's spoiler time. Oh my God, what a construct, right? What a fucking plot. Like, let's just start there. Again, pre-really reality TV,
And like the opening of the movie is the credits to the TV show. I like that.
I know. Yeah.
It's saying like, oh, directed by Christoph, and you're leading into the TV show. You still get the title of the film, but you don't
not even directed, created by. That's again. I think. Yeah. I just think that's important for throughout, But yeah, it is. I love that too. The credits, and it's like you start at day 10,909, and that's again same thing that's on the movie posters as well. And I just think you're thrown right into the thick of it. He's almost at his 30th year, and I think that's also very intentional, right? It's a lot of it, in your life, that's a big moment, big milestone, and he's starting to like take a closer look at his life. But to your point, we get dropped right into his utopia, as it were, like this place that he's in, and it's called Sea Haven. It is literally like white picket fences, cobblestone streets, clean, sunny every day, island, like perfect, all the things. And fun fact, this is a real place. This is not a set. It's
not inside a giant dome in Hollywood.
It's not, and it's not visible from space, despite what they tell you at one point. No, this is Seaside, Florida, you guys. This is a real fucking place. And when I found that out, I was like, ew, Ew. I immediately had the ick. I was like, this is a real place?
Well, you grew up in Texas. If you had grown up like in Jersey where I did, you know what a shore town looks like. Or like my parents now are near Panama City, Florida, and it's like you go down to those towns on the suburbs on the beach, basically, where it's not a party town, but it's just where people live, and all of them look exactly like this.
It's not like, I don't think it's the shore town of it all to me. It's the like, it's the construct. It's the plastic of it all. It's the like so clean it's fake. It's the
Yeah.
and I do also, I don't like, which to your point maybe is the shore town aspect, like that everything is symmetrical. You know, like they have the exact same house across from each other, the mailboxes that are exactly the same, like everything is just copy paste. Like I do not like that. But yeah, it serves this set so well. It serves the purpose of this story really perfectly, and was one of the inspirations, one of the many inspirations for this film, was like the eerie perfectionism of a place like this, of this place, and how clean and beautiful and whatever it was, you know,
And I don't
Stepfordy.
think this movie did anything to turn that around. I feel like anytime I, go for a drive or a bike ride around town, it's every like housing development that pops up is kind of like it's not as idyllic as this is. But
Yeah.
when you ride through a place and like every home looks the same because they all just paid to have a build done and they're all the same color and the same style. I feel like I want my home when I get one, if I can ever afford one in this economy, to have some identity.
This economy.
Like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, having characters, anytime you want to add character home, it gets way more expensive, right? Like these are the cookie cutter ones that are accessible, and they even basically say that in the show, right? So one of the things that's critical to understand about this environment is that literally everything is for sale. Everything is for sale. There's so much product placement. There's a Truman Show catalog. There's like the homes are for sale, but insofar as you can order them, right? Like from a catalog. You can order this plug and play, copy paste home from a catalog, which is the most wild thing. And they're propagating that as like that's the desire, right? Like what is desirable. So they're trying to create this Truman type of world outside of the Truman Show, even though you get these flashes to these very different communities that are watching this show. And I think that's the other thing that I like at the beginning, and also we see at the end, of snapping to the same core characters kind of throughout as we're going through Truman's experience here. We're watching these like different vignettes of different audiences, and it's compelling because they're all really different and they are all watching this show. Like it appeals
I
to
think this
everyone.
is where we start getting into like what exactly is this satirizing. I do think
Mm-hmm.
that it's showing one of the good things about television in this case, where it does bring people together, like people's passions around things like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or The Wire or Lost. Like they're stories that link us together, and there's people from all different paths that get into those types of things. I would throw in Martin. We've mentioned that show from the 90s with Martin Lawrence. I think that one united a lot of us. Mackenzie, you're on board with that, right? But when you were talking about the product placement, the obvious ones in this, I don't think are as funny. A poor Meryl having to do the actual like
So
direct to
many,
camera ads
so
every
many,
like 10
yeah.
minutes. Those ones I think are funny, but my favorite ones are the ones where it's subtle, where when the two twins approach him in the beginning and they push him up against the wall, his head is
Is
directly
that
next to an
subtle?
ad.
Would we say it's
I
subtle?
thought so because they don't
It's
call
like,
attention to it. It's just you as the viewer being like, oh, there's an ad in this movie. Oh, there's an ad in the TV show in this movie. Or the fact that every day when he goes to get his newspaper, the person going ahead of him in line orders dog fancy, like every
mm-hmm,
single time. So it's just like, oh, we have
mm-hmm.
this programmed little pop up ad every single time Truman goes to the newsstand. So do you think? I think there's multiple things at play here, but where would you start with like what exactly is this satirizing?
Well, yeah, a lot of things. I think one of the things, at least on that topic in particular, is like the consumerism mentality and
That's where my
also
head went.
just the um kind of the nature of every like content being about commerce. right? And so even though this show is supposed to be entertainment, at the end of the day, we're not just entertaining out of the goodness of our hearts, right? We're entertaining in service of a corporation, of a product. And so I think that is what it's a commentary almost on art that is like trying to be art, but is really an imitation of art because it's not really art. You're trying to sell something and it kind of brings up that almost age old question of, is art still art if it was made to be sold, if it was made to as a product rather than as the result of true inspiration?
You seem to
And
have a really good time with F1 last month, so I think you're going to have to take back everything you just said.
I'm just interpreting. I'm not saying that I don't understand. I'm just
No, I
saying I
think
think
you're on
that's
the
what
right
can come
track.
up.
I
Yeah.
think this is absolutely poking fun at just capitalism and the ways in which I'd be curious to see what a Truman Show would look like. I don't want that. I'm not asking, please, Hollywood,
Yeah.
don't remake this movie. But I'd be curious what this would look like in the internet age, because it just feels like now I open my phone and I can't even navigate to effing Google without like
Yeah.
little pop-up things of like, oh, do you want cookies? Do you know, can we track your location? It's, you turn all these things off on your phone to get rid of that shit, but now I can't just scroll on my phone without a million pop-ups and like being bombarded. So I think this again was ahead of its time in calling it out.
Yeah, and I think like it, to be fair, right? So way back to the beginning of TV, it was powered by sponsors, right?
Yeah.
Like news organizations could give the news because there were sponsors, right? It would be paused, like we're going to pause from a word from our sponsors, and it didn't manifest in the same volume of commercials that we have today. But commercials themselves have always been a thing on radio, on television, on in whatever form. And that was one of the many inspirations for this film, is like, especially early on, you know, like think like 50s TV commercials that had a very specific aesthetic and look to them and a very specific purpose. And they were very similar to like the pitches that we see Meryl give, right? It's the foot pose and the holding it at this angle and da da da, and this tone and this look and this polish to her. And that, I think, is one of the many things that they're like calling out here, is that we have always interlaced the two things. The art, the commerce, the content are all interwoven. And at what point are you separating somebody selling you something from the person or the thing or the piece of the art? And because they're all obsessed with Truman. I mean, that's again one of the compelling things to me about these audience members, is we're snapping to the people in the Truman bar, we're snapping to the guy in the bathtub, we're snapping to the security guards, who, you know, all of these people seemingly have very different walks of life, very different probably areas of interest, and they're all interested in this. And like, what is it about this algorithm, to your point, translating to modern times, what is it about this algorithm that has gotten them to engage to this degree? And we hear obviously that the unique proposition, value prop of this product is it's been from birth. Like, and
People
I
feel
think,
attached and they've just been watching him grow up. They like, he talks about taking your first steps and saying your first
yeah.
words and all these things. Yeah.
And I think that's the inherent connection that they get from it. But it also is that then that his life is inherently capitalistic, right? Like
Hmm.
he has been produced as a product from the time he's a baby, right? The concept existed without him. And we find that out later, right? As we're watching a bunch of babies, and whoever gets,
That might be
you
the
know,
most fucked up part of the movie, honestly. When it's like,
yeah,
yeah, we just had 5 babies to choose from. It turned out he was like the one, and their
he's the
parents
one who
didn't
showed up
want
on
them.
time.
When they
Yeah.
say like, oh, they were unwanted babies, and he just happened to be born at the right time.
Well, and this is, and the specific call out that I think is telling is that it was like he was the first child to be adopted by a corporation, right? He's a corporate product. And
Yeah.
and I do think that sets off to some degree, like you said, this dynamic between Christoph and him of not only has everyone else watched him since birth, Christoph has, in his view, created him since birth. And because he calls himself that, he's the creator, right? And so
That's what I was
he
going to ask was,
molded
do
this
you feel
experience.
that's, my head went to that same place, because for as much as I said at the beginning of this, you know, some of this is Jim Carrey doing Jim Carrey things, but it feels a little different. And then I was like, did they just get lucky when they picked Truman to be like the star of the show? And it just turns out it's Jim Carrey. People love him. He's very likable on screen, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking within the context of the movie, guys. But then I was like, well, hypothetically, if you've had control of him since birth, the nature nurture thing, you can make him have whatever personality you want. You just surround him with
Yeah.
actors that teach the kind of humor you want him to have, and the kind of, like, being likable and being nice to people, and he will grow up exactly how you want him to. So yeah,
I
it's all
also think it's a little
pre-programmed.
bit of like the nature nurture debate, and I think it is not lost on me that that could potentially be a part of the commentary here, right? Of like the
Yeah.
nature versus nurture. I personally subscribe to the mentality that it's a combination of both, and I think you see that manifest in him as well, right? He has absolutely been nurtured to by his surroundings to feel like all of this is normal, right? Like people look and act this way, societal structure is built this way. You want XYZ things that everybody else wants. Like this is the human experience and this is normal. But the nature of him is to want to explore. The nature of him questions that reality. The nature of him feels a little out of sync with all of this when the nurture of him should accept it all and not want to look anywhere else. And so I think that's like to your point of he's gone this long of kind of buying into the thing and doing, and he's only had this very brief blip of questioning. And now it's gotten to a point that he kind of can't ignore it. And I think that's what
That's
sets us off here.
yeah.
I think
I'm
that's why
glad
we're
we're
at 10,909 is what I'm saying. I think that's why we're tuning in at this day, right?
that
This
was
is
going
the
to be
beginning
my
of it.
question halfway through this was, is the like production team just getting sloppy at this point? But they do tell us later, no, there's been
That's an
people that have
important.
broken into the set and there's been
Yeah.
mistakes that we've just had to cover up. But the amount of shit that goes wrong in like a 3-day span in this of him, I mean, we obviously have the like, I feel like the first weird thing is like that rain cloud that's only over him,
Yep.
and that just feels so
Well, in the
lazy.
radio thing,
The
they're
radio,
directing him. They're like calling out
the
where
the
he's at.
light falling down from the sky, and they
Yeah.
have to explain it away on the radio, like that one I kind of get, of like,
And
yeah,
it says
space
it's
garbage or whatever.
Sirius, which is a
Satellite
star,
radio.
right?
Oh,
No.
ahead of its time again. Yeah, so that
A
was like one of the
constellation
stars
of
in the sky.
star.
That's kind of
Yes.
cool.
So like if you're
But
looking at it, you're going, this just fell from the sky and it's a star. Like what? You know?
yeah, so him questioning that, I mean, the movie kicks off pretty damn fast, but we see these slow buildups, and then when his dad shows up, and we've already gotten the flashback at that point where we see that that's why he's traumatized from water. But like when his dad shows up, I think is when shit really hits the fan and he starts to spiral.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think I kind of think, and this is where I think this is both satirical and leaning a little bit into the like the art aspect of this story, which is that I think the breakdown of this set and the production value, which I think is a very important call out here. You're like, how have you been doing this for almost 30 years and you're making these kinds of mistakes, right? Like
Right.
wild. But I think that's the point, right? I think that this breakdown is coinciding with his breakdown as well, right? So like to what degree are Truman and his environment tethered? And is his slow emotional and mental breakdown during these next few days coinciding or impacting rather the environment that he's in? Right? Like, is he, by virtue of having this disassociation or these questions, breaking the system in which he has been raised? Right? Like, he goes into this building he's never gone into before. That's why he ends up seeing this staging area and these people, right? Like he's breaking his own surroundings because he is doing different things and he is looking at it differently.
Yeah, he's catching all these signs that are just compounding and compounding. And it's weird to, I don't know if it's weird to me. Is it weird to you that Jim Carrey's never gotten an Oscar nom? Like not even a nom?
I think it is and it isn't. It is because I think he's got work that makes sense, but I think it isn't because people dismiss largely comedic actors as like not having the same skills as say a dramatic actor, and when in fact oftentimes it's quite a bit harder, and comedians and dramatic actors will tell you that. So I'm not surprised he's been dismissed in terms of like being kind of swept under the rug of like, he's just a
That's
comedian.
kind of where my head goes. I think if you were gonna give him one, it would be for this or maybe Eternal Sunshine. But even in that, he's being a little zany, which I get why. It's like, well, that's a character. That's not I don't know. Anyway, all that to say, if I were gonna nominate him in this, it wouldn't be for a ton of the jokes and the dialogue and the things he did. There's a scene where he's starting to piece things together, and I think he's driving in the car, and he's not talking at all, and it's just his facial expressions while he's driving of him figuring this out. And you could see that, you could just read his face and see the thoughts
Just
turning
see
in
the
his head
wheels
of like,
turning.
what is going on? And I just thought that was like, for Jim Carrey, I mean, that sounds mean to say, but like that's one of the best performances I've seen Jim Carrey give, and he didn't have to say a word.
No, I think that says a lot in general. I mean, any actor who can bring you through an experience with them without saying a word, that is a compelling performance, you know? And to not be saying, I need to look perplexed here versus you seeing the thoughts that he's probably having, right? Like the inception of the thoughts. That plays differently. And I agree. I think I saw that scene and felt the same way. I think also like he does a good job when he's even thinking about he's getting these flashbacks, and they're like they have constructed his trauma, right?
Yeah.
Like they have constructed everything. They built him, to your point, to be afraid of water because they needed to keep him on the island. Like there was a reason for this, and they took away his father to do that, which is, to your earlier point, really like cold and unemotional and tactical of Kristoff, right?
Yeah.
Of like he has no line. It is, this is the product, and the product has to stay on the island. And it's in direct contradiction to what he says in his interview later of like, he can leave anytime he wants. No, bitch, he can't. You are actively, again, constructing trauma to prevent him from doing that. And you see that kind of show up on the beach when he's there, like thinking about everything when the rain cloud happens. And he's just like, he's having this flashback, and you almost feel like he's questioning it then, like what
Mm-hmm.
happened there. And then the rain cloud happens, and he sort of starts cackling. That was another really, I thought, compelling performance from him too, of his flashback to the cloud being centered on him and him running back and forth, and him just like maniacally cackling like, this is fucking insane. And you see him kind of starting to
That
crack.
might be the most iconic shot of this in my head. That's the one I always
Yeah.
remember the most, is him standing with just the rain over top of him and moving out of the way of it. Like that is like a core, like stuck in my memory kind of shot from this. Not to say there's not other good ones, but yeah, the moments of him catching on, I think, are great. When he's sitting at home and the TV movie that's about to come up is explaining the plot, and they're trying to manipulate his emotions through this TV movie
Oh
that's about to
yeah.
play.
When you
When
want
he,
to leave but realize there's no place like home, really, you know? Yeah. Oh my
just
God.
super on the nose, like not obvious at all. You called out the catering thing. I love the fake surgery when the doctors have to
Oh my
operate because
God,
he's
that was
watching
so
and they're so not
hilarious.
ready for it.
I forgot about that scene until it started
Yeah.
happening, and I was like, oh my God. Oh,
And
it's
then when
so,
he's trying
another one that
to,
I think is really funny is that his mom, did you notice that she has a self-portrait of herself over her fireplace?
I did not.
It's this like big, beautiful oil painting of her and her crazy hair. And I'm just like, fucking Holland Taylor. Like it's so appropriate. And then she immediately starts emotionally manipulating Truman.
Yeah.
I think that's a both terrible and funny scene, but it also immediately leads you to question like, this isn't like, you're supposed to in this moment not know yet, by the way, if she's his mom or not, right? Like they're not really telling you all the bits at once. But it makes you question that, because what she immediately does is start to tell him, you know, she emotionally manipulates him into staying, and to have like, she needs a grandbaby. Like why would he why would he want to leave and explore? Oh, he must feel guilty because he's the reason his dad died. Like just really salt in the wound. And I think at that point, like in a healthy familial relationship, right, nobody would say that to somebody, right? So you're immediately like, this is not a real relationship, much like his relationship with Meryl. You know, you cut to that too, that feels just as disingenuous, just as fake as well.
Yeah, you start to really dislike a lot of the characters in the world with him.
Yeah.
That's not to say, and I think that there's probably, I think I read that there's deleted scenes where it does show that a lot of these people had grown attached to him and kind of, especially his best friend, kind of like regretted lying to him for his entire life. But they didn't really have a choice. They got to keep their roles. Otherwise, apparently you get written off the show. So,
Yeah.
but before I get into the next point, I'm going to segue. But the last funny thing I wanted to, I love the escape plan where he makes Meryl drive him across the bridge, like just hits the gas and is like,
Yeah.
you steer, like don't let us die, basically. And then the travel agency with all the most terrifying travel agency of all time.
It could happen to you.
Yeah.
Lightning through a plane. Oh my God. I know you're like, this is not a real travel agency, Truman. Like, but it's interesting to me because again, the whole premise is like he's slowly starting to figure this out. And it feels a little bit like a slow burn when there's things a little bit like that you're like, this makes no logical sense, right? Like a travel agent wants you to leave the country, wants you to get on an airplane. It wouldn't have a poster about how airplanes will kill you. And instead, he just sort of, he questions it for sure to some degree, but he ultimately dismisses it, and walks out. And it's like, okay, I'll just do something else. When in fact, like that foundationally doesn't make sense. This world doesn't make sense if you look really close at it.
And that's what Lauren kind of tries to get him to realize, right?
Yeah.
And she has obviously fallen for him, but there's a script, so they know who they want him to end up with, and they sort of manipulate the situation to get him with Meryl. But I like that sequence of the flashback where we see them interacting and kind of flirting, and he has feelings for her, and you're watching essentially a real life scenario play out, even though it's still, it's two of them being real in a fake place.
Those two things feel real. Exactly. Like that little vignette is real, and it's one of the only real things we've seen. It's not perfect. It's not clean. It's not constructed in the same way as everything else is, and the way Meryl is, right? Like this person has edges to them. This person feels real. And I think she does a really good job of being kind of the, she sticks out like a sore thumb almost, right? Like, and he can feel that too. He can feel that about her, and I think it speaks to, again, like his nature is not to actually accept the premise, to accept the world that he's in. His nature is to question this and think that looks weird or that feels weird. And it's kind of sad that you see he goes along to get along with some of the things even after that. He ends up marrying Meryl, and you're kind of like, why? You don't seem to even you don't seem to like her at all, much less want to marry her. And that brings me to like not only their dynamic, but that they are all trying to get him to have a baby. Like we have to look at the hard stuff for a second here. You know what I mean? And the hard stuff is she married him. She has slept with him. She wants to sleep with him, to have a baby, to conceive a child. And she is, in theory, an actress. And she will conceive a child with this man to have in the words of Christoph, first on-screen conception. That's his goal.
The two security guards watching do complain that you never get to see anything when they're being frisky. I like that cutaway. But, think about it. You're in season 30 of a long-running television show. It's time to add a baby into the mix, right? So it's a plot point, I feel like, from Christoph's point of view of like, oh, we need a kid. Wouldn't it be awesome to watch Truman raise a kid?
But not even just a plot point. It's, in my opinion, the beginning of a cycle, right? Like, how do we keep this going, right? Yeah. How do we create another Truman? We create a baby Truman, and then that baby Truman's going to have, right? Like, they're trying to make this world go on forever. And in the compromises, moral, ethical, and otherwise, that they are making the people involved do is really gnarly if you think about it, if you look at it too long. And, she even says later when he's really figuring things out, and he actually is starting to scare her because she's in an enclosed space with him. There's nobody there to protect her. He's a little manic, right? She's freaking out, and she's screaming she finally breaks too, and she's screaming at the camera, and she's like, do something. And she's also like, it's unprofessional. And it's interesting. It's like a funny line. But it is, again, if you look at, I don't know, if you zoom out a little, you're like, what are the lines of professionalism in this context, right? You guys have already compromised so much to create this world that is fake for him and is built around him. I
think maybe it's also satirizing the fact that men are just better at gaslighting than women. I think that's what we learned from this movie, because this poor woman just breaks. It's like, I've been doing this for so long.
I think that is the moral of the story. How did you know? That is totally accurate. Yeah.
Have you seen, this is a total diversion, have you seen Jury Duty on Amazon?
Oh, is that the Bryan Cranston one? No.
No,
Then no, I have
it's
not. Oh, Jury Duty's the one that like he goes and sits
it's
on the
Truman
jury.
Show.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
is
No,
Truman Show,
no,
but
I
it's like
have not.
one guy who is grown. They don't film him from birth, but he gets summoned to jury duty, and
But he
everyone
like
there is an
everyone else
actor
knows
except
it's
for him.
right, and it's like
Yes.
a crazy case or something, and he's like, "What
You
is
have to watch it.
happening?"
It is, and
Yeah,
they just got to our earlier discussion. They got very lucky with the person they selected because he's such a sweetheart and he's such a good protagonist throughout the thing. And every curveball they
yeah.
throw his way, he handles very well. So definitely worth watching. Little shout out for Jury Duty.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to watch it. That's actually not the first time somebody's told me I should watch that. It's really interesting, but yeah, I think this is on the whole like this is trying to create a new genre, which is it's like reality TV on steroids. They call him the creator, they call him in that interview a televisionary. Like so punny.
Did you also pick up on the fact that at the beginning of the interview, the news guy apologizes and is like, "I know how you value your privacy." Like the fucking irony in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, don't mention it. It's fine. And it's
Yeah.
like he is kind of hidden away here in this world. You know, his whole world is this. You absolutely get that impression. You know, he does this 24/7. And he wants again like this on-air conception, and he talks about the other people, the people who have been kind of cycled out of the Truman Show as former cast members, and like it's just that's what they are, they're actors. I'm not like it conceptually makes sense, but then you hear it in that sense and you're like, his dad's a cast member, you know what I mean? Like he is not real in his life, and this construct he created is like a real violation. And I like the phone call between her and him during that interview where she's trying to like explain her stance, and you get a little bit more of a snippet of like why she's so passionate about getting Truman out of there, you know.
I mean, honestly, though, Lauren, you're an extra. Just do your fucking job and like walk from left to right on the set, dance, stay off camera.
You had one fucking job, girl.
Yeah.
Like, get it together.
I do like the shot where she sneaks him out because, again, she's so in the loop on everything when they're in the library and she fools the camera. That's a cool shot when the camera pans and it's like they're not there and it cuts back and they're running out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that she, you know, she's a little bit of a spy, right? Like she kind of wants, like she thinks there's maybe a way to get him out, and it feels the way they get her away from him, you know, she's schizophrenic, she's done this before. What a cop out, by the way. Fucking
in love with that's what gets him in the heart, is when they're like, she does this to every guy she falls in love with, blah blah blah. Like, oh
yeah, and you know that's hitting something deep seated in him, obviously, because it's the one thing that like kind of stops him in his tracks. He's like, wait a minute, you know, and you
been
just
with
see
other
them...
men. I've done that.
How
so
very
many times.
How very dare you? Yes. And
this
I think
over.
he's like he's coming to terms with this moment, and I think that's the thing that like snaps him back into whatever. Okay, I'm going to take the safe route. I'm going to do this, you know, this thing that is almost like a foregone conclusion and feels like the thing that I should do, even if it doesn't quite feel right. But he's willing to do it at that moment because he's been hurt by this. And that's the thing that's so interesting to me about this world they've created, is again the way in which they will hurt him over and over or control him, and the lengths they're willing to go to do that. And to your point about people getting close to him, it seems like Marlon's the only one who like has like really seems like his friend, and you kind of trust him as a character more than anybody else. And then you get the scene where he's having that come to Jesus with him, and he's being fed the lines.
That is
by Christoph.
Probably my favorite scene in this, I think. Yeah. It's just Christoph directing, like conducting almost. And like cueing every camera, cueing the effects, giving the dialogue. And it is just, yes, it is him controlling this entire scenario. And you just see, and you kind of feel for Marlon in it as well, because you can kind of read his face a bit throughout the film that he's not enjoying this.
Well, yeah, and he performs it so well, right? He gets given the monologue is dictated to him literally, but he changes it, right? I think that's distinct and intentional. The delivery of it is different than Christoph's. It feels like it's him giving it in a more authentic way, but you can feel the struggle of that scene for him. And that's really hard to play, in an authentic way. And I think, he does a really good job of that. And you feel like he'll be really sad when Truman leaves, right? Like he will genuinely, the person, be sad that Truman is gone,
Yeah, I read, and this is not something I came to my own, like I didn't realize this, but when you think about it, it makes a ton of sense. And it's basically he goes during the last 15 minutes leading up to that, he's spoken to his mother, he's spoken to Meryl, and then he's spoken to Marlon. And that's when his dad shows up, right? And it's like, it is me, your dad, I'm back, it's a miracle. And Truman is crying, and you might read that as sadness or tears of joy. I mean, you might read that as tears of joy, but in reality, he's crying out of sadness because he realizes that the three closest people in his life have all been lying to him, like they're all part of it. So this is completely fabricated.
Yeah, and I think it's the moment where he realizes he's really alone in this, and that
because he doesn't. This is when he makes his decision to leave, right? It's not as though he goes and hangs out with dad for the next day.
Yeah, and there's there's definitely this I was reading, there's a lot of analysis about what's happened here. There's a bunch of comparisons that one I'll get to in a second, but one of the ones they say is like this is kind of a typical adolescent growth cycle in some cases, like a prototypical adolescent. Truman is the prototypical adolescent who's going through this, finally kind of realizing that he's got to grow and change and whatever. And he's realizing, for him at least, that manifests as he has no other choice but to leave. He has to flee. He has to leave home in the way that somebody leaves home when they're 18. But that for him here is the island, right? I got to leave this island. I got to get away from this to actually mature and get into understand his authentic identity as an actual adult. And that's the thing he hasn't fully come to on his own in this place that has been a real crutch for him. And he has to kind of leave this childlike self behind. And that's why he's called Truman. They're like, this is him becoming a true man. Like, this is the story of him working his way to becoming a true man. Well, it's just like his adolescent growth, right? Like it's just a play on words of like, that's potentially why that's his name, right? Of like, this is him becoming a man.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it past Christoph to be that fucking what's the word I'm looking for? Like pretentious.
Yes, but he's obviously very pretentious. You saw the hat,
Yes.
Right?
Honestly, if you take that off, he's a little more likable throughout this film. But as we get into the sort of the finale here, when he makes that decision to leave, we get him sneaking out. And then I love the different tricks that Christoph is trying to pull to get him. He makes the sunrise in the middle of the night.
Which is you see him cracking too, which I think is very interesting, right? He's desperate at this moment as well.
Yeah, 100%. He's got the sun coming up. He puts everybody back at their starting spots of their loops, which that moment is creepy as hell when the town is just frozen in place and they all know their marks. But yeah, when Truman finally gets into the boat and it's incredible. It's such a unique scenario to have the final most climactic moment and the biggest payoff of this conflict be literally someone playing God while one guy's in a boat and trying to navigate the sea and the other guy's controlling all the elements. It's such I don't know that we've ever seen something like that before.
No, I don't think so. And I think you're, like you said, there's only one way in and out of here. Like he's the control, he's the force. And I think this is where there's a real parallel to, you mentioned earlier, like a utopia. There's a real parallel to the book Utopia, the book. So I have it, of course. Sir Thomas More, Utopia. And what's interesting about this is that it is in its own right, arguably a satire. And on top of that, very specifically, it occurs on an island, and it's a utopian paradise. And there's only one way or very specific entrances in and out of this island. And only the people who are part of the utopia know how to get in and out of the island.
It's like Wakanda.
Like Wakanda. Exactly. Modern parallels. I love it. But yeah, so this is the Wakanda, the situation, except he doesn't belong in Utopia, right? Truman's the only one who doesn't know the ins and outs and how to get on and off of this island because he doesn't belong here in the first place. And I think that's the interesting part of this story of like, he is been kept happy and ignorant to be controlled. And that is the commentary of the book of Utopia. And when he figures out that he's not actually a part of this society, he's not actually a part of this utopia genuinely, is when he's freed from it and realizes that it can't control him anymore, you know? And I think it takes us to this really beautiful ending that, I mean, just he literally busts out, you know?
When he, I forgot all about when he almost drowns, thanks to Kristoff. And it's worth calling out from what I said before of this main conflict being between basically God and man.
Yeah.
Ed Harris and Jim Carrey never met on set because literally they were on two different stages filming everything. So they never met during this film. I'm sure they met afterward, had a drink or something. But when he wakes up, you know, he comes to and just rights the ship and I forgot that he sits down and he's having this moment of clarity and the sun comes back out and he's happy and then he just hits the fucking wall. That's a great moment.
Yeah. And I like that he's like, it's funny because you know that he's realized that this world isn't quite real.
Yeah.
But again, he doesn't know how to get out. And so he just goes the only way he can think of, which is with a boat. And when he runs into a wall, he's like, but it's interesting to me that like he knows that this place is a construct at this point. He doesn't know the degree to which it is, but he knows that it is. And then somehow he's still kind of surprised when he hits the wall. But it's cool. He cuts to, you know, he realizes there is the exit. There's a staircase and he can just walk out. And it's like, it's really kind of poetic that he can just take the steps up to the door and walk into oblivion if he wants to.
And that heart to heart that they have at the end, where again, you're not entirely sure if Kristoff is being genuine or if he's just trying to get him to stay. But when they have that moment, and again, it's literally just Truman looking up and talking to God, his God, essentially. Like they frame it that way, where he's talking down and the voice is kind of booming from the heavens, and it's just blue sky, white cloud background. But that heart to heart that they have is pretty empowering. And then just the fact that Truman's like, "Yep, I'm just gonna walk out this door and see what happens." I like that we don't get to see Truman after he walks out of the Truman Show. We don't see him reunite with Lauren. We don't see what happens next. And I think that's very intentional to be like, the show is over. You don't get to see him anymore. You've seen him for 30 years.
Yeah, it is. It's totally, well, and I love that he, you know, his final bow, literally, in his final line is the line, right? It is, you know, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And he turns on the character, right? Like the character of Truman that he has unknowingly been playing. And he laces it with this subtle bitterness, but also finality of, this is the last time I'm going to say this line and I'll give it to you one more time. And takes this bow and walks out. And yeah, I totally agree. He's doing, you don't get to see him anymore. That's the last thing he's ever going to get. You assume
that he and Lauren are going to meet up. You see her running.
She's coming to find him. She's like, I will get to you. And it gives you, some hope, but it's more beautiful almost because you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get show's over. Exactly.
But we did get one, like, because Joey from Friends has to say, "How you doing?" That's just, you got to get that one last catchphrase out there in the finale. It makes sense.
You do. And I think what's cool is that they jump to all those same characters that we've been seeing, like we've talked about. But what I think is the one of the biggest pieces of commentary here is that life goes on. Right? Yeah. The first thing that happens is when the feed got cut earlier, for example, people were in a fucking panic, right? But now that he has said goodbye, he's escaped. They're like rooting for him at the end. The bathtub guy's hanging onto the fucking shower curtain. Like,
Janelle called it out. How often does this guy bath? Is he like?
I know, he's a prune. He's just straight up a prune.
In the bath all the time.
Listen, okay. I don't know if he has a disability. I'm not judging people's lives, but maybe he lives in that bath. He lives in the bath for sure. But like they're freaking out when the feed gets cut. But then when he's choosing to leave and he says his final line and he walks out, and earlier there's that like, how's it going to end kind of theme. This is the ending. They've gotten to the ending. And they're like, okay, what else is on? And
Yeah,
they
that's
just,
a great last line.
life just keeps going, you
Yeah, if
know?
you're
And
talking
it's
about what this is satirizing, I
yes,
mean,
that's
Americans
what
in
it is.
television, probably part of just what else is on. Okay, that
And
was great. I'm done.
consumption
Yep.
television and the
Yeah.
juxtaposition of like how much they went through, Truman and everyone else, how much they controlled, how much they manipulated, how much they did to sell you shit for 30 years. And as soon as it's over, what else is on? You know, I just, yeah, it's a crazy ending, and it's I think really well done.
Totally agree.
Okay, y'all. That's the Truman Show, man. It's what a ride. What a ride. I haven't watched it in a while. Like I love this movie and I haven't seen it in a while, and I didn't realize. I was like, oh, I can just kind of like watch it and not take notes. And then I immediately was like, I have so many thoughts. I have so many notes. So yeah, I loved this one. What was your rating?
I think I've seen this movie 3 times, maybe twice, but it's been probably a decade since I watched it last, and it holds up so much better than, not that I thought it would, but I couldn't remember how seriously I took Jim Carrey in this role. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
the first couple of minutes you're like, oh, he's being a little cheesy, he's likable, but then as it goes on and you see him figure, I feel like this is really a precursor to Eternal Sunshine, another one where he's figuring out what the hell's going on. He's in a weird
Mm-hmm.
situation. Like I think without this, he probably doesn't do that role eventually.
Yeah.
One other weird thing about this that I think might be part of what I don't like, because as I said, when he starts kind of going crazy and he's doing Jim Carrey faces and yelling and he gets more zany than he is throughout the rest of the film, those are the parts that, not that they lose me, but that's where I'm like, can we get to the next like piece of dialogue or interesting part about this? Because Jim Carrey doing Ace Ventura and mask things isn't what I want to see in this movie. And apparently, I had no idea until this time when I watched this. Jim Carrey had some creative control in this. He was able to provide rewrites and improvise.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that was a little frustrating for the director. Eventually, they got on the same page. But I'm wondering how much of that is just like, hey, Jim Carrey's at the peak of his superstardom, so we're going to let him do whatever the hell he wants because people are going to pay to see it. Which, to your point earlier about the budget and the money it made, yeah. But overall, I think this movie's really fucking good. Like, and I'm surprised at how much I enjoy it on rewatches when you know
Yeah.
everything that's coming. But it does tug at your heartstrings in different ways that are different than a lot of other
Yeah.
films, I think. And the whole God complex thing going on is kind of fascinating to watch. So I'm gonna go. I'll go a solid 8. I'm really tempted to go 8.5, but I think I'm gonna go solid 8.
We're gonna jinx. I'm
Oh yeah.
also yeah. I don't know if that's ever happened. I also have like a solid 8. That's
Yeah.
my rating in here. A lot of the same things you said of just, I think it even now is still like, I kind of was worried actually that this wouldn't age well with the advent of, you know, the way that
Mm-hmm.
reality TV has become so prevalent. And I mean, I guess I don't watch it that much, so maybe that's why it still works for me, but it still resonated because I was like, this is such a unique concept and there isn't a reality TV show like this, obviously. So I think it was still able to pull at like those very specific heartstrings. I think some of the manipulation of him and where the story was going was still really different and really compelling. And I thought it was really thought provoking in terms of, why does Truman want to leave versus, you know, this again perceived utopia should be sufficient for some folks, right? And I thought it made him a very interesting character to watch in that sense. So yeah, I think it's a solid 8. I think it very much holds up. I think the performances are really well done and it's really, again, thought provoking, and you could talk about it for hours and hours.
It's also,
Obviously.
for as silly and like comedic as it is, it's just a very smart film, which I don't
Yeah,
want to sound pretentious myself when I say that, but the
I
things that
will.
I called out earlier, yeah, you will. The things I called out earlier of some pieces of this, they don't immediately call your attention to, they don't over explain, or they backtrack on it. So when he goes to the dock in the beginning of the film and he buys a ticket, he walks out, he sees the little rowboat under the water and just has a breakdown. It's like,
Yeah.
and then he runs off. They don't
Mhm.
explain the dad thing until 20 minutes. Like, you can draw your own
Right.
conclusions, but they're not immediately having a line of dialogue explaining that. I like
Right.
that there's little
They made you
hidden
earn it.
Easter eggs in this. There's vitamin D capsules everywhere because they don't have sunlight. Like, that's a
Yeah.
cool thing to throw into the movie to
Yeah.
just add a little bit of, hey, we put a lot of effort and a lot of intelligence into this. All the songs on the radio are public domain to show that the TV show didn't want to spend a ton of money on
Yeah.
like hit songs. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a very clever, inventive, creative film that is also funny and packs a punch. So highly recommend if you've for some reason never seen it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of layers to your point of like the story within the story within the film within like there's a lot of that to really unpack and there's again a lot of like psychoanalytical analysis you could have, literary analysis, artistic analysis that you could take to this. There's a reference at this point really to Flammarion, which is like the drawing of the guy who's breaking through this bubble that is a utopian bubble to get beyond the sea to see what's beyond, and it's all rainbows and like this world that he can explore, and that's like a gnostic piece of art. Like you could say that that's what this is based off of. It's there's so many references I didn't even touch on because that's how I think rich this story can be.
We should reference Equilibrium too. I feel like Equilibrium is probably on par with your Utopia book. Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Tay Diggs.
No, I love
Tay Diggs in that. No,
it is. I think it's Tay Diggs. I think that's right. That was really good. That was underrated. It came out at the same time.
Corny, but I really enjoy it.
I liked it, but it came out at the same time as The Matrix, and I think it was just like not the time. But y'all should watch that one anyway. Well, thank y'all for joining us for our brand new month of September Satires. This was fun. Hope to keep it rolling with our next one next week. We will be doing This is Spinal Tap, which is coming out with a round 2 if you didn't know. If you didn't know.
This is literally, 40 years later that they're making the sequel? I hope it delivers. I
hope so too. Like the trailer looks interesting. The tone looks similar, very similar. A lot of all the same people that I've seen, like the key people. So yeah, I'm interested. But anyway, we're doing the OG, just to be clear. We're doing the OG.
Yeah.
In honor of, this next one is coming out as well. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. You can always get video portion of this podcast on YouTube or Spotify video. And you can email us anytime you want. We drink and we watch things pod@gmail.com with questions, suggestions. I know we have our 2-year anniversary coming up next month. So if you want to send any questions our way, I don't know that we're going to do another Q&A episode, but if we get enough in the mailbag, maybe we'll do an ep like that.
Yeah, maybe so. All right, homies, for now, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.